good to be back at Wittenberg. This is, and light person, I'm going to be moving, so follow me. Good to be back home. This is really a home of mine. I have a lot of good friends that still live in Springfield, work here at Wittenberg, and this is a special, weird, funky, beautiful place. But there are some very beautiful people here too. And I didn't know good looks got into the application process, but clearly it did. So I'm glad to be here. And you know, I'm going to tell you my story a little bit about who I am and my Wittenberg experience, just because I'm a Tiger as well, and I wanted to just tell you my ups and downs and how I got to where I am today. So I was a freshman from New Jersey, so I was one of those out-of-state demographics that you see in the admissions office, probably the only guy from Jersey. And I was a football player. I came out to play football and had a good freshman year. I was one of about 6 freshmen to travel with the varsity team, had a good experience, but ended up actually tearing my shoulder up pretty bad. Tore my labrum in my right shoulder, had surgery, and I attempted to come back, but it just was too much. I couldn't do it. It was just tough, and so I kind of said, okay, well, I'm not playing football anymore. So should I like transfer back east? Should I go to Rutgers or go back where all my friends and family from home are? But I started thinking about some friendships and close relationships that I had already made at this place. And I also started to think about all the opportunities that I saw before me. Even as just a freshman and a sophomore, I knew that there were things happening here. There were cool opportunities for me to get involved and actually maybe explore things I never thought about before. I was also an English major, actually first, actually until my junior year. And there was one class that changed that. It was 18th century British literature, where the book you had to read was 4 times as thick as the Bible. And I kind of said, no, this is okay. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. But I was taking sociology classes as well, and was actually minoring in sociology at the time. And that, for whatever reason, was catching my interest. I was just fascinated by the study of human interaction and looking at what's going on around the world. So I switched majors pretty late. But wow, I started to see a whole new world of opportunities. And I started getting involved with internships, both in Springfield, at nonprofits and housing authorities here, and then on a congressional campaign back in New Jersey. Started going to the Career Center and making a resume and a cover letter and things that I never knew how to do or never knew I had to do. But I started to feel like, okay, I'm getting some things together, but I still have absolutely no idea what I want to do. No idea. Then the summer of 2009 came around, and there was an opportunity to go to Lesotho. I'm sure you all are familiar with the Lesotho trip. Half of you have probably already been there. And if you haven't, half of you will probably go. And I encourage you to go. But this was an opportunity for me to maybe experience something that was so different than what I knew. I'm from an affluent suburb of New Jersey, where, you know, I had everything I ever needed or wanted and never struggled in life, honestly. Now, the weird thing about this trip was, you know, I got accepted, I started going to the meetings, but I did not really know anybody in the room. There were 37 students in there, and people that I knew of or were friendly with, but I didn't have a close friend or a good buddy of mine who wanted to go with me. So I sat in there and I'm like, this is strange. I'm going to go to Africa with 37 people I don't even know. But it was the first time that I was intentional about being vulnerable and uncomfortable. And I put myself out there on purpose and said, I don't care. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be uncomfortable and just see what happens. So we went to Lesotho and left with 37 strangers that I didn't know. We had to start having an amazing experience, developing some close friendships of people who were there. And then about halfway through the month, we had an experience at a pediatric AIDS clinic, Baylor University. Now this was a turning point not just in my experience in Lesotho, but in my life. So the first time I'd actually really come face to face with a disease of poverty like this, and seen people and spent time with people and held hands and held the children that suffered from this disease. So the cool thing about this day was we weren't there to do anything but hang out and make these kids happy. Try to distract them from the needles they're about to get prodded with and from the checkups and the doctors and what have you. Now, we had little fake tattoo stations of this carnival that we're putting on. We had drawing stations. You know, you could throw a ball. There's a bean bag toss, a parachute thing, you know, that fun parachute thing. Now, I got stuck with bubbles. okay? They handed me 2 little bottles of bubbles, and I'm like, this is the lamest thing ever. Well, you know, who's gonna want to like have fun with these bubbles? I mean, it's like the most simple thing. But I just started blowing these bubbles, and all of a sudden, it turned into like the most popular station at this carnival. The kids, they're all age about 3 to 6, were just in love with chasing down these bubbles and started having competitions with who could pop them first and how can we, you know, be the first one to jump up and reach. And the laughter and the smiles in these children's faces, it was incredible. There was this one boy who had probably the most radiant smile of any child I've ever seen, who just, I mean, I guess we can call him Bubble Boy because he loved these bubbles. He was chasing them. He grabbed the ball out of my hand, started blowing the bubbles and laughing at the kids trying to pop them. And for about 10 minutes, just was full of energy and running around everywhere. Now, remember, this is a pediatric AIDS clinic, meaning these children are most likely infected with HIV, being born with the disease. And when you're infected with HIV, your immune system is very weak and you become fatigued very easily. And so this boy quickly went from a very energetic young boy to being quite tired. He kind of crawled up into my lap and just sat there for a while. And this is when it hit me. This is when it hit me. And I sat there and I said, why? How is this fair? This boy has been born with this disease that takes away a childhood and a future that I've been given. For what? You know, I thought back to the days I'd ride my bike to the baseball field or the football field and play with my friends, thinking about my life as a college student and all that I've taken for granted. Shook me up. I had to walk away. I was emotional. I couldn't really understand what was going on. And I walked to the corner of this yard and I tried to gather my thoughts. And that's when I made a promise to myself and to God that I was going to do something. I could not just go back home with photos and talk about the mountains and the people without actually doing something. I realized then that I had been given all these gifts. And again, for what? I don't know. Why do I have these gifts and what can I do with them? So I came back to Wittenberg. And this was the perfect place to come back with those feelings and emotions, because this is a place of nurture. The people, the professors, my friends, I started having these conversations of what if? What if we did something a little bit more? What if we went that extra mile and did something that was uncomfortable and yes, let us become vulnerable? What if we started an organization that actually could have some kind of sustainable, long-term impact with the people that we love in this country that we now love? And Wittenberg was a great place. They started supporting us. They started, you know, the professors would spend extra time helping me. And, you know, we didn't know what we were doing. And so in the spring of 2010, we launched Bloom Africa, an organization that focuses on community learning centers and teaching life skills to orphans and vulnerable children. And we launched in Founders Pub, and I think we're the first and only nonprofit organization in Ohio to launch at a college bar, by the way. And like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. I had no idea about board governance, about filing taxes and paperwork and 501c3 and all this crap that I didn't know came with this passion that I had. But that's what we had. We had a passion. We felt like we were called to do this. It didn't matter. All of us went into this, joining the board and spending nights and weekends figuring this out because we felt like we had to. There was something in us, and we went for it. We had enthusiasm, we had charisma, we were passionate, and we did it. And now the organization does well. And the thing that was strange probably for my team is pretty much right after we launched, I hopped on a plane and moved to Africa. I did the Young Adults in Global Mission program in South Africa. And I lived in a city called Bloemfontein, actually pretty close to Lesotho. Lived at an orphanage. Now this is a place and an experience that taught me so much about community. I got all this time to discern, to read, to pray, to think, to write, to wonder, what is my calling? What am I here to do? I learned about community. I learned about the Southern African way of life of Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because we are. That means I'm only who I am right now, tonight, because of all you sitting in those seats right there, because you're in my life right now. I'm only who I am because of my community and the people in my life. And I was so vulnerable when I was there. I mean, I knew no one. I moved to a foreign country. But that vulnerability allowed myself to let these people into my life. And I came home now with a new fire, with a spark inside of me, and wanting to really change the world and right away get involved in my community. But I came home and I was unemployed for 5 months, living now under my parents' roof, okay? Going from living independently in Africa to now with your parents, it's not very easy. And I said, what the hell am I doing? I just had this transformative experience where I thought I'd come home and change the world right away, and now I want to make a difference. I want to get out there. But I'm sitting there, and the highlight of my day was walking my dog. And then an opportunity came. I was offered a job as a major gifts officer with United Way in metropolitan Chicago, and I'd only been to Chicago once before, but I figured, you know what? If I moved to Africa and I experienced that, got through that adversity, I can do this. And I accepted that job. And I started a new chapter in my life where I started getting involved in the community in Chicago and learning about nonprofits and learning about community organizing. I started joining boards of nonprofits and getting involved in volunteering. And now in my new job at the ELCA doing major gifts development, I feel like I am living my calling and vocation. And I am so blessed to have that. It's not easy to always let go and let things come to you and listen, but it's important. So there are 3 things that I think are important for all of us to think about and be intentional about doing when we're seeking our calling. I think the first is be vulnerable. Be intentional about being vulnerable. When is the last time you allowed yourself to be so vulnerable that you could only depend on the people around you, your network, your community, your friends, your family, and people you don't know? You know, one of the beautiful things about Ubuntu in Southern Africa is that they don't really see strangers. Even if you're a different race, how about that? Wow. Because they believe in community, and they know that we all are vulnerable at some points in our lives, and it's okay to depend on other people. So be intentional about being vulnerable. The next is be uncomfortable. Like I said, I was very comfortable in my life. I grew up in this affluent suburb and had everything I ever needed or wanted, didn't worry about anything. Didn't really even study that hard, but got through and got to a great college and got a degree and whatever. And we need to go out there and be uncomfortable in the world. Don't be comfortable with the injustices in the world. Don't be comfortable with the normalcy that entraps the beauty of this world. And I think far too often we associate being comfortable with being happy. I think that's a dangerous thing. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. Happiness and that pursuit of happiness and that greatness is the above and beyond. It is that both and in this either or world. Be uncomfortable. And this, I think this is the most important out of the 3, is have a purpose. Have a purpose in everything that you do. And I don't care if you think it's a small thing. Have a purpose. Put down your phone. Make eye contact with the person you're talking with. Live in the present. It's an amazing thing to give 100% to everything you do. I think we should go to bed exhausted every single night. Because I think we should look back and say, I have given this day all that I have. Tomorrow will come with its own worries and its own problems, and I'll worry about those tomorrow. But today I gave it my all, and I had a purpose in every single thing that I did. Go to bed exhausted every night. And so I think if we explore the world, we allow ourselves to listen and to let go and to show up for our own life, we're going to start figuring out what that calling might be. And I really do believe that if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and you're intentional about putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and you have that purpose, you know, we all have a calling in life. But if you do those things, I think we might be able to figure out how to answer that call. Thanks.